Mary Carruthers, The Book of Memory, A Study of Memory in Medieval Culture, 2nd edition. The Book of Memory. Mary Carruthers' classical study of training and use of memory for a variety of purposes in European cultures during the Middle Ages has fundamentally changed the way seculars understand medieval culture. This fully revised and updated 2nd edition considers afresh all the materials and conclusions of the first, while responding to new correction and research inspired by the original. This new edition devotes much more attention to the roles of trained memory in composition, whether literature, music, architecture, or manuscript books. The new edition will reignite the debate on memory in medieval studies, and like the first, will be essential reading for scholars of history, music, the arts, and literature, as well as those interested in the issue of orality and literacy anthropology in working and design of memory, both neuropsychology and artificial memory, and in the discipline of meditation religion. The Book of Memory, a study in medieval memory culture, 2nd edition, Mary Carruthers. Preface, 2nd edition. Preparing a wholly new edition for work first undertaken more than 20 years ago has offered me an opportunity to rethink, recast, collect, and generally reassess the conclusions I offered in 1990. It is a task that carries mixed rewards. I have resisted my initial temptation to rewrite the entire thing from the beginning. This book cannot be started again. Published some 18 years ago, translated entirely or in part into several other languages, and cited in many contexts by scholars with a great diversity of interests. It has a life of its own now, and my control over it is limited. So the book begins as it did before, and the general ordering of the materials is unchanged. With each sentence, the note has been reconsidered. I hope this has resulted in greater correctness in the translations and citations, increase in fidelity of style and clarity of perception. I have also, however, updated the content when new scholarship has old conclusions untenable, and I have added materials to some of my analysis, reduced some discussion, and expanded others. The images selected for reproduction are somewhat different. I have also updated the notes and bibliography to incorporate translations and editions that have appeared since I did my original research, and scholarly discussions that have matured over the past dozen years. I wrote in 1989 the Book of Memory was to be the first of three. It seemed the audacious promise at the time, but in fact it turned out to be truthful. The Craft of Thought, 1998, examined an early medieval period and focused even more particular on the invention and creative nature of recollection as it was cultivated in the practice of monastic reading and composition. An anthology of English translations of many of the medieval texts that have been proved important in history. The Medieval Craft of Memory followed in 2002, prepared with my good friend Jan Ziolakowski, a consummate scholar of medieval Latin, and with the keen participation of translation and annotators of several members of his medieval Latin literature seminar. Inevitably, as I have continued to work over the 2 decades intervening since the Book of Memory was first published, my own understanding of medieval memory culture, as it has come to be called, has changed and deepened. In this edition, I have adjusted corrected more than just my Latin translations. I have come to understand far more clearly the place which the craft of memory training memory artificials had in medieval education. It perceived strengths, its acute accepted limitations, and most importantly, its status as an instrument of thought. Employing particular devices as specific goals and uses, ars memorativa is not itself theoretical thought. Like all graphs, it has a general principle. Two themes in particular stand out, which I did not focus on in the earlier edition, and it may be helpful to point them out now. Though I did not know at the time the Book of Memory appeared just as interest was picked up in issue of memory and forgetting, particularly in relation to historical narratives of various sorts and monuments. The Book of Memory was swept into this concern. Although, in fact, the subject with which it dealt had little directly to do with monuments, and while it certainly had a bearing on the construction of historical narratives, it was not directly illuminating of the issue of material selection and presentation that have most concerned historians like Pierre Nota, Patrick Gary, and Jean-Claude Schmitt. In rhetoric, memorycraft is a stage in composing a work persuasive in the axiom of recollection is an act of investigation and recollection in the service of conscious artifice. Its practitioners would not have been surprised to learn what was to them already obvious. The recollection is a kind of composition, and by its very nature is selective and formal. Analysis of postmodern have been particularly concerning for the past decade, with issues of forgetting which they often ally with issues of trauma and repression, as though remembering everything were the natural and describable human condition, and forgetting was due to various pathologies, if not outright political immortality. In this postmodern presentation, the art of memory have fared badly. The very idea of memory are dismissed as a hoax or at best a chimerical quest, but the rush to condemn has itself created a historical illusion. For ancient and medieval writers supposed that human memories were by nature imperfect, and that human recollection best by applying their reasoning abilities. These, in turn, could be aided by certain learned practices that build on some natural principles they had observed concerning how people best learn and construct their thought and other artifacts. St. Angston writes, I arrive in the fields and vast mansion of memory, where are treasured innumerable images brought in dear from objects of every conceivable kind, perceived by the sense. There, too, are hidden away the modified image we produce by our thinking. We magnify or diminish or in any way alter the information our senses have reported. There, too, is everything else that has been consigned and stored away, and not yet amplified and buried in oblivion. The huge repository of memory, which is secret and unimaginable caverns, welcome and keeps all these things to be recalled and brought out for use when needed. And as all of these have their particular ways into it, so all are put back again in their proper places. This I do within myself in the immense court of my memory, for there sky and earth and sea are readily available to me, together with everything I have ever been able to perceive in them, apart from what I have forgotten. Apart from what I have forgotten is a cheerful admission of that phrase lies an essential difference between modern and medieval understanding of cognitive function of memory. To have forgotten things is seen by us now as a failure of knowledge. However, ordinary a failure it may be, and therefore a reason to destruct the power of memory altogether. Yet to have forgotten something was understood in Augustine's culture as a necessary condition of remembering others. It is helpful to distinguish two results from failing to imprint something in the first place. The sort Augustine seems to be talking about how this should not be called forgetting because, as Aristotle remarked in his discussion of memory and recollection, one cannot be properly said to have forgotten something that was never there in the first place. On the other hand, there is a deliberate or selective forgetting, the sort of forgetting that itself results in an activity of memory. In the passage I have just quoted, Augustine is certainly speaking of consciously trained memory, one who then isn't like prey. For he often speaks of memories as being just like animals hunted from their lairs, whose tracks are vestigial, are to be followed through like familiar pathways in the forest, can be rationally sought out via their particular paths when needed for use, and then return to their proper places when finished with. But this is edifice. This vast treasury is chosen and constructed. It is a work of art, using the materials of nature, as all arts do, but consciously crafted for human use and purpose. In this book, The Memory History Forgetting, the French philosopher Paul Ricoeur, himself a profound student at Augustine, complained the art of memory and outrageous denial of forgetting, of forgetfulness, and of the weakness inherent in both preservation of memory traces and their and invoking in similar vein. Harold Winrich in Bless, a book that sweeps in gently over the theme of forgetting is canonical Western literature, states that